Black Cat Lounge is sponsored by Paranormal Oddities, the little store with the big heart. Dragonfly, Art and Soul. Paraniagara, where the real ghosts of Lockport hang out. Wild Raven Candles for those magical times. Queen of Tarts, Metaphysical and Bake Shop. Hey everybody, welcome. This is Tim Shaw. I am your most congenial host, and thank you for being a part of the Black Cat Lounge on a Tuesday night. Yes, I know many of you guys out there have so much to do on a Tuesday night. That's why I do it on a Tuesday night, because I know, guess what? You're just hanging around, doing laundry like I do, and looking to get into trouble. Well, here's the thing. You come over and hang out with the Black Cat Lounge, we'll keep you out of trouble, at least for an hour, and after that, you're on your own. You're left to your own devices. I have to tell everybody that you guys all know how important my family lineage is to me. And so many times people have come up to me and said, well, Tim, I mean, your family came in the 1830s from, overseas, over from Scotland. And, and you've really always tried to reach back and bring out a little something from that time period or whatever. And, and a lot of times you guys know how sacred history is to me. You guys know how the Victorian era is to me. You guys know how I've been out there and I've done historic trekking where we've gone out and literally lived off the land, just like the pioneers did. And how I was a docent up at Old Fort Niagara. There's nothing better than to go and touch history. And before we go on, let me just show you something. I have a couple things. I think you guys might have seen it before. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but this is there we go. This is my great-great-grandfather, Edward Shaw. And he served with the 105th Pennsylvania Infantry. And he fought at Gettysburg. And the interesting thing about this is, I do know that there's other soldiers that were in the family. I'm still tracking a lot of them down. I know his future father-in-law would have been with the 64th New York. But guys, on the evening of July 2nd, there is an existing letter from a soldier in the 105th Pennsylvania that talks about E.P. Shaw, Edward Polson Shaw, my great-great-grandfather, out looking that night, July 2nd, 1863, looking for his brother. His brother, unfortunately, was killed in action in the Battle of the Wheat Field. And his body was never recovered. And they talk about, in many things that I've heard and like family lore, that his line of battle was near artillery, and his body was dismembered and crushed under the wheels of military caissons, artillery caissons. So they never found him officially, and he probably is lying in state in the National Cemetery under an unknown. But the one thing that I want to show everybody too is that sometimes we get lucky. Sometimes we can touch history. And I want to show you something, a relic of his. The only relic the truly true relic I have of Edward Shaw, my great-great-grandfather. And this is his Union belt buckle. And you'll see it's lead backed. It's a brass piece. You can see that's an original. But you'll see that there is a Confederate mini ball that is embedded in the side of it. And you can see how it flattened at the end. I believe that he was hit the year after Gettysburg in 1864 at the Battle of the Wilderness, because he had sustained a leg wound there. As a matter of fact, his future father-in-law sustained a leg wound. It's the same action pretty much. And it was so bad that the guys were just describing their uniforms as tore up by bullets and artillery and that sort of thing. So it's quite amazing when you start looking at something like that. And it just came to me. I never thought I would be the repository of something that sacred. That's sacred. And here's my buddy Sean. Sean Willard says amazing piece. Seeing it in person gave him the chills. Yeah, I remember the first time I let Sean. I said, "Here, Sean, hold this." He was just like, didn't know what to do, and it is amazing. It's just an amazing piece. I'm so thankful to have it. I mean, it's a blessed piece, and you never appreciate stuff like this. I always had heard relatives. I had a great uncle that used to tell me about the Civil War, and that's where I got my appreciation for the Civil War. And my father was a kind of a history guy, and I got my appreciation of history from him. And the rest is history, so to speak, a little play on words. But this, I guess what I'm trying to say is, what I'm trying to do is set the stage for our guest tonight. I met him at the last large event I did in 2022. Actually, the week following, I had a cornea transplant. So it was really special to have been invited to Dundee Old Mill, the Old Mill. We're going to be talking to a friend of mine all about the Old Mill later on, and in a couple weeks. And but it was a great event. It's always a great event. I love the people up at the Old Mill. It's just so great. But I got a chance to meet this gentleman, and you know what? And we were just talking before the show. The worst thing about these events for me. Now, I love meeting people. I listen. If this pen would stand still enough, I would talk to this pen. So I love talking to people. But this gentleman was sort of kitty corner to me, and I got a chance to look at his books, and we were talking, and we got a chance to share some stories. And then I had to go up and talk, and it was just so busy, I didn't get a chance to really get to know him. And he's so gracious, and he came on tonight, and we're going to talk about his experiences in Gettysburg and and some of the other places. We're going to get to know him a little bit. So I just want to let you guys know this guy has spent 40 years as a journalist. Wow. That is an accomplishment. I don't care what anybody says. As an author myself, I know it takes so much discipline and focus to do this stuff. So I have so much appreciation for him. He's been recognized with several Associated Press awards. That's very impressive. He's a very, very sought after speaker, very sought after. He's an author, having penned, oh my God. I met a Ghost of Gettysburg. I met more Ghosts of Gettysburg. Hell on Bell Island. Bell Island is an amazing story about a POW camp. It's like Helmira here in New York State. On My Mind, which was a culmination of many of his weekly articles, which is great, and as well as other titles that he has written. He has written about the American Civil War, Northeast Ohio, where he comes from. It's so great because as someone who has been a docent and volunteer at historic sites, I love finding other people who have the same interests. And he is actually a living historian, interpreter. He's an interpreter. Now, when you say an interpreter, it's not languages, it's life skills and talking to the people and about what it was like during the different ages of which you're portraying. And he's an interpreter up at Sander Village in Archbald, Ohio. And he and his wife have founded Fated Banner Press. Please, everyone, welcome my newest friend, Don Allison. Don, how are you? Thank you so much for being on tonight.
Looking forward to it. Thanks for that great introduction.
Well, Don, I mean, hey, first of all, it's not a great introduction. It's all truth. A great introduction is if I said, well, he just sent me a gold bar of bullion. But you know what, Don? I mean, really, you're very accomplished. And I got to say, we got a chance just to talk maybe 15 minutes. And I thought, wow, I am just so thrilled about your whole take. And I think a lot of people, the problem that I have with a lot of like historic interpreters are they're either too much into the ghost stories, or they're just like there's no such thing as ghosts. It's the location that's kind of like influencing your imagination and that sort of thing. And I know up at Old Fort Niagara, I've run into both sides, and sometimes it's a hard. It really is a razor's edge to walk. So I want to ask you. I just to get your backstory a little bit. What was it about? Well, okay. The best way I can ask you this question is: have you always been into the paranormal before we start talking about history? Has anything like have you ever had any experiences prior to when you were exposed to what you have been exposed to in Gettysburg? Or did you just kind of like experience what you did and just get just blown and just like have your mind blown and just get suckered right into it like so many others do?
I was actually very, very skeptical of anything to do with the paranormal. Looking back, I had some experiences early in life that I just kind of pushed aside, discredited. But it's the house that I now live in that really made the difference for me. We purchased an 1830s house here in Northwest Ohio, and it was in very, very poor shape. But the history behind this place is amazing. So we wanted to bring it back to life. But as we started working, we started experiencing just inexplicable things. I would hear somebody walking around upstairs when I was alone in the house. Go upstairs to check, no one's there. Other people um, actually, would experience things here. First, I thought I was losing my mind. I just pushed it aside. Nah, this can't be. But the more it happened, that I finally had to come to grips with it. Yes, I mean, you can't sit be working in the living room and hear somebody come in the front door. You hear the door open, you hear steps go down the hall and up the stairs, and yet you go watch and there's nobody there. I mean, to the
Right.
point that I know historical clothing, and this was a heavy set gentleman with leather boots, plainly, things like that. And once I started embracing it, I started talking to some of my colleagues at the newspaper, and they all started telling me, "You need to write about this." I thought, "You got to be nuts. People think I've lost my mind if I start writing about ghosts in the house." But as more I started to, instead of push it away, I actually started to embrace it. Like, this is actually pretty cool. What is this? I started researching, and I was kind of dragged kicking and screaming into writing my first book. I met a ghost at Gettysburg through the house and some other things that happened. And my wife and my coworkers basically browbeat me into writing that book. So that, okay, I'll treat it as a journalist, treat the paranormal as I would any other story as a journalist. One and done. I'm going to write this book, and that's it. No more. That book opened doors to me that I never in a million years would have seen coming. And the rest is, as you said earlier, history.
Well, it's so amazing. It really is amazing because I think when you have such a love of history, and when you go and you can feel it come alive, I believe that there's just something within our own selves that it just becomes it just resonates, and it resonates as an experience. And I got to tell you something that was really cool. You hit on something that's just so cool. As a historical reenactor, as an interpreter, you go, I could recognize the sound of boots. I could recognize that he was a heavier set gentleman and he was walking in. It's so funny that the historic shoe wear and footwear makes a particular sound that only interpreters who have really been intimate with the time periods can go and bring out. It's just amazing. Now,
Exactly.
oh my God, it's great. Now, Don, let me ask you this. Uh, when you when you started to really embrace that there probably is something else, before you would go and you put your fingers to your nimble Don, your nimble fingers to your laptop and started typing. I got to ask you what you were thinking. What was your thought process uh, about the paranormal? I mean, uh, when you started writing the book, how did you approach it? Because now, like with my books, I've approached it two ways. One way, I've approached it sort of more, I guess, reader friendly, where where you could go and it became more sensational. The paranormal was more important than the history. But then another book that I wrote, where I was able to interview like living witnesses to these different accounts, I took it and moved it so that now the paranormal was secondary. It was the emotions of the people involved, and it was what was going on historically at that time. So what was your process?
I I've treated the two paranormal books that I have done very much in the approach I use for my weekly newspaper column, very personal. I mean, and I do research, it's all fact based, but it's my reaction. And really, I delved into my thought process, trying to come to grips with all this.
Mm-hmm.
What is going on? Talk to people who have investigated the paranormal. Talk to skeptics. I love talking to skeptics. Kenny Biddle's one of my favorites. Talk to some others, Skeptical Inquire, to sort of validate or try to debunk some of my experiences. And I feel the more I can do that, incorporate that into my writing, the more
I
true to
agree.
life my experiences are. And it's really I've tried to just show people, really, if there's a goal that I'm trying to accomplish, it's to show people there's more to this world than what we know. And if you open your eyes, if you pay attention, if you are willing to just explore, there's a whole new world out there.
I agree. I agree. And God bless all the people that watch all the network shows. I mean, I've been on a couple network shows, so God bless those people. Thank you so much. I got these opportunities to visit these great places.
Yeah,
But
yeah, me
it's so
too. It's great to
oh
get to
yeah,
do that, but
you got too many people out there that I hate to say this, but boy, they'll go out there and they a creek will make them jump and it's a ghost. Somebody's gurgling stomach is a demon. And you sit there and you're like, wait a minute. Let's kind of put a little science in there. And I mean, I've been brought up as a spiritualist. I mean, my family can trace spiritualism to the 1880s. And as a matter of fact, my great grandfather's daughters were the first ones in the family that became spiritualists. So they got a chance to be able, to really experience it during that age. But as a I won't say I'm a historian, but as someone who really researches a lot of the old ways, there's a lot of fraud, and there's a lot of things that can be conjecture or imagined that are
yes.
kind of iffy. And I think that you have to have some kind of measurement, a bar that you can go and you can bounce all these different experiences against. Do you feel that as paranormal investigators? And I'm just going to stay in this for just one more question. Do you think as paranormal investigators as a whole, do you think too many people are reaching too far out there for because it's in it
Mhm.
they need to hear it? Do you think that might be the problem with a lot of what's going on now?
I think that that does a lot to debase the serious research and the serious investigating that's going on. Um, yeah. Hi, Kat. So she a good friend of mine, Kat Gash. I've
Yes, because she
investigated
had
with
said to
her
say hi
many
to you.
times, but yeah, it does so much harm to the field because people see that and people can see through, that stuff. My bar is, yeah, a lot of stuff is pretty cool, maybe paranormal, but that's just it. It may be.
Yeah.
It's things have to be pretty rock solid, like the history has to line up, things like that for me to really say, okay, this is paranormal.
And and now getting into the topic of Gettysburg. I mean, my wife and I have, when I was a kid, I would go down there since probably I was 9 years old, my first trip down to Gettysburg. And my wife and I, after we got married, we would at least take 1 or 2 trips a year down there. And we remember when the ghost tours, and I love, my friends that run the ghost tours, but I remember when they first started. And all of a sudden, and for the business owners down there, it's fantastic. But all of a sudden, the ghost tours became more important than the battle and the lives of those soldiers and what might be still walking around Gettysburg. Uh, Gettysburg is, to me, sacred soil. It is an amazing, beautiful, beautiful place. It's a terrible place if you look at it historically, and I think that people need to get that whole Disney facade out of their brains and look first before you go into like the ghost tours and all that. Really sit down and understand what the true history is. What really happened here, there, and everywhere. And then afterwards, the orphanage and uh when they were removing the bodies, the Confederates, and sent them back down to the Hollywood Cemetery, and they were the establishment of the National Cemetery. You have to look into that and you have to understand a lot of it. And that's where I think a lot of people are kind of falling short. They're going for the sensationalism of it. But let's get to you. Let's get, I've been excited about this. So let's talk about your very first experience in Gettysburg. Now, what happened? Set that whole scene up and let me know. I gotta hear this.
I have loved Gettysburg. Now I live far enough away. My first trip to Gettysburg was my wife and I's honeymoon, and it was my wife's idea to honeymoon there. So how lucky am I? But
You,
uh,
you,
but
you
no, I've
picked a
been there
good
for the
one. Yep.
history. I'd been there to promote books there for the history. But I took my 14-year-old grandson to Gettysburg for a spring break trip, and I registered as a journalist. We got some behind the scenes things at like the visitor center and different things, but we were offered a free ghost investigation. And I wanted to entertain Connor, and he'd had experiences at our house, so he was
Wow.
was open to this. So he said, "Yeah, Grandpa, that sounds cool." Well, this was a 2-hour investigation. A very, very sincere young lady took us around, and we had laser grids, and we had a small ghost box, for for the real time EVPs. We had EMF meters. We spent nearly 2 hours, and we got one bleep on an EMF meter, and we did get an EVP. She said, "What color coat's one of you wearing?" And it said blue. I did have a blue coat. I was, let's say, underwhelmed up to this point, but we were at Stacks Bridge, and
Mhm.
we finally had everybody else left, and it's just my grandson, the investigator, myself. We sat down, and we started getting answers on the ghost box. Is anybody here? Yes. How many are here? Like 7, 8, 9 different voices. What year is it? 1863. And my immediate thing is, okay, how are they hoaxing us? How are they pulling this BS off? I'm trying to figure this out. And but this young woman, very sincere, seemed to know her stuff, but we to make a what could be a long story short, because this ghost box interaction went on for a while, but we got you know some things to the point that I was trying to look at it as, okay, if these are really voices of soldiers, what would interest them? I said,
Mm-hmm.
do you like jokes? And got a very polite yes sir on the ghost box. And these were pretty clear answers. You know how ghost box so much static, and we did have
Right.
some problems with that, but some of these answers were very clear. And I said, well, do you like music? In the voice, you could almost sense an inflection, almost like an insult, like, of course. And my grandson, quick thinking, he says, can you play for us? And we get a yes, sir. And we started getting acoustic guitar music on the ghost box. We couldn't
Wow.
recognize the sound, but this went on for measures and measures. These weren't blips of a radio station. These were kind of fading in and out over measures. I couldn't pick up the tune, but it was very clearly of that style. It was acoustic guitar. Later on, it sounded like a mandolin kicking in. And after several minutes of this, it finally died out. And I said, wow, you're good. The voice says, thank you. I said, can you play some more? Yes, sir. We got more music. This time a harmonica kicked in. And I'm just thinking, how in the world is this going on? Well, finally we were getting, somebody coming through. Were you a soldier? Yes. What state were you from? We couldn't understand it. So I started rattling off states that I knew would have had, troops in the Sachs Bridge area. And when I got to Ohio, didn't get any answers to anything. As soon as I said Ohio, got a yes. And I said,
Wow.
oh, Connor and I are from Ohio. And the EMF meter, we each had one. We had gotten nothing on these. Connor's and my EMF meter, when I said that, went to the very top and stayed there for 2 or 3 seconds. The investigators didn't budge, and she's only like 2 feet away. But we actually got, an answer. Well, like, how old are you? What unit are you in? 20. And then unsolicited, captain.
Wow.
And we got a name. It was hard to understand, but the investigator with us kept saying, can you enunciate more clearly? It was clearly 3 syllables, like a very clear on, and then like almost a hard S at the end. And many times this name kept trying to come through. Finally, we kind of gave up. And then she asked, were you hurt? And we got this blood-curdling male scream. This still sends chills
Wow.
down my spine.
Wow.
And then a woman crying. And then that kind of took it. And at this point, I didn't know what to think. Some other people came on the other end of the bridge. We'd already gone now an hour over our 2 hours. So we left. Now, all the way back to Gettysburg, I'm peppering this young woman with questions. She said she'd never heard music on a ghost box. She said she'd never had an investigation like that ever.
Amazing.
So I went home and I was determined to show how I was hoaxed. Bound and determined to figure out how they hoaxed
Good for you.
journalists. And
Good
the more
for
I
you.
talk to people in the field, talk to people, no, this is how it works. You get nothing. All of a sudden, you get some great things. Then you get nothing. You can't broadcast to it. It's scanning radio stations. And then I thought, okay, were there any Ohio captains killed or mortally wounded at Gettysburg? So I researched it. Yes, there were 7.
Yes.
One of them, the name was 3 syllables, Mahlon Briggs. He was mortally wounded on the first day's fight and died on July 2nd of a hip wound. And he was captured. They were on Barlow's Knoll.
Right.
He was with the 25th Ohio. And anyway, he may well have been taken to Saxbridge as a prisoner. I don't know that is a fact, but it's a possibility. But anyway, everything checked out. And I couldn't debunk it. So that is the title, where the title of the book came from. I met a ghost at Gettysburg, and I tried to outline that experience, as clearly, fairly, and as skeptically as I could. But and I tell people, well, draw your own conclusions based on the facts of
Agreed.
that case.
Agreed. Well, it's amazing because now Saxbridge, literally, Don, I have walked over that personally walked over the entire battlefield of Gettysburg. I have bushwhacked it. I've had to go and like constantly get rid of the ticks off my legs and off my back because I'm always out there.
Yep.
My poor wife will be in the hotel. Oh, you just go out there and you wander. And I love the Saxbridge area for some reason. Seems to be one of the strongest areas for paranormal two-way intelligent communication. Now, we all know that the Saxbridge was washed away and then it got turned around and it's backwards. And that's part of what some people kind of get confused about when they get responses. But I often wonder if now, because there is a period home over there, which is not too far away, which we do know every house was a hospital. And
yes.
I often wonder if that's not where there were hospital tents or something of that nature. And then we do have running water. That creek is not a small creek. That is that's a substantial creek that is there, and Saxbridge is actually a covered bridge. So when you see it, I often wonder if it's not the geology adding in with the running water, the rushing water, because that's one of the theories. Rushing water promotes paranormal activity and that sort of stuff, the energy. I believe it's negative ions it creates. And Saxbridge is probably one of the most unique places out there because it's like away and tucked away from the main battlefields. So I often wonder if that has something to do with it. But also doing your due diligence to be able to go and track down captains from Ohio and be able to narrow it down into that scope was amazing. When you narrowed it down to that name, how did you feel? How did it make you feel?
I ran across that name, and when I realized his story, it was almost a spiritual thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I felt it deep inside. I just knew. I mean, it's beyond just the thought process.
Right.
I think most historians, even if they're not into the paranormal, know that feeling. You just know something. You have discovered something, and you know it with the depth of your being. Yeah.
That had to be one of the most thrilling experiences ever. Now, Don, have you ever had the opportunity to work in any of the houses down in Gettysburg? I've been able to go into several of the homes, both private and public. I'll just say public, to do investigations and that sort of thing. Have you ever had a chance to get inside any?
Yes. Actually, some very good friends, great friends of my wife and I from the Detroit area, purchased the Sanders farm outside of Gettysburg.
Phenomenal. Oh my God, phenomenal.
That place is incredible. Mind-blowingly active. They have about 8 acres of woods. It was a Confederate cavalry camp. Their house and the surrounding area was a field hospital. That basement is absolutely mind-blowing. And I actually haunted trails at Gettysburg. They make part of their living, hosting, investigations. You can investigate yourself or do, group public investigations. And it is, I could probably talk for the whole show on just the experiences I have had at their place. just amazing.
You know, it's a friend of mine bought the David Stewart farm, which was a Confederate field hospital on Lee's Retreat
I
out of Gettysburg.
I have
And
investigated there as well. Yes.
isn't that, and that barn is insane. That barn is I walked in there, and that box started screeching at me. I was amazed at what came through in that place. Do you feel that a lot of the homes, well, like I say, every structure in Gettysburg became a field hospital or a someplace where soldiers were tended to? Do you feel that there is a distinct reason why? Is there a reason? Do you feel that? And everybody knows we're talking about residual hauntings and intelligent hauntings, two-way communications. Do you feel that there's a specific reason why these houses can become haunted? And also, let's just go right let's just go right to the battlefield. Let's talk about, why do you think that the battlefield is actually active?
Well, I'm with you on the running water, the water table. I think plays a major role. I think the quartz rock
Yes.
there plays a major role, like a quartz battery. I think, and just the energy
True.
of the emotional energy of what happened there. I think you just have kind of the correct conditions, and that those things interact to create that. I feel a spiritual connection there because I had ancestors at Gettysburg. And this always fascinates me, talking about family ties. I've always, since childhood, been fascinated with Little Round Top. It was
Mm-hmm.
always the 20th Maine's fight at Little Round Top.
Right.
Now, once I get into the paranormal, things kept happening around Little Round Top and near the Alabama Monument that made me really stop
Yep.
to think what's going on. I researched some of my mom's from Alabama, and I learned that I had several great grandparents and many great uncles in the Alabama Brigade who fought at Gettysburg,
Right.
including great grandfather was captured at Gettysburg at Little Round Top with the 15th Alabama, and a great uncle was in the adjoining company. They were in two of the companies that kept swinging around further to the back.
I was
And I
just going to
believe
say,
my great
weren't they the ones that
yeah
came
was
up
captured.
and that swale and came up, and they got captured? They got, a lot of them got captured in that little swale where the road is now,
Yeah,
and the road, of course, now is filled in. The swale is filled in. There's a road that goes there. But yeah, I know exactly. I know exactly the road that, or right the area where he would have been captured. That's amazing to me.
but and I did not know that he escaped from Point Lookout, Maryland, the following
Wow.
October, made his way back to his regiment. Amazing story. What's really cool is I was in the movie Gettysburg. I was a 20th Maine soldier, but for one day, they needed Confederates for the charge
Mm-hmm.
scenes. So I got to portray a 15th Alabama soldier in the
Oh,
battle or the movie
wow.
of Gettysburg. And I did not know at the time that my ancestors were in that regiment at Gettysburg. Talk
Synchronicity.
about yes, there you go. Synchronicity is right. That
That's
to me, that's
amazing.
mind blowing.
I love that. I love everything about it, about that story. Now, let me ask you this. Out of the whole battlefield, everything, we're talking the first day's battle, we're talking the second day's battle. You know, the first day's battle, of course, was outside of town by Seminary, the Seminary and Seminary Ridge, and going in, and going into where the college is. And the second day's battle, of course, is, Peach Orchard and pushing in through Devil's Den and up into the Round Tops. Third day, of course, is Pickett's charge going to the copse of trees, and then, of course, you have the cavalry battlefield. And then you have, of course, you have the town. What area do you find, in your opinion, might be the most active? Because I have a couple opinions on that myself after being there and exploring it. What's your place where you say, "Wow, this is where I have to
I
stop every time
have
I come down here"?
Well, Little Round Top, obviously, And I was there, and I'll share this experience. And there's also another area that I want to talk about, but
Hmm.
um,
Please.
I was there with Kat Gash, very, very good medium and a very good friend of mine. I wanted to get her feeling, and she didn't know the background of my family. I just let her know I have a connection. I wanted to get her feeling. We stopped at the Alabama Monument, and it's getting dark, and we're talking, and I see, and I had never had an experience like this, and never anything quite like it ever since, but I saw behind Cat four semi transparent Confederate soldiers walking up behind her. And I
Wow.
was dumbfounded. She spun around and said, "Stop, don't sneak up on me like that." And then she looked at me and said, "You can see them." And I was stunned. Um, they
Love this.
they had guns. There was a fifth one. She said, "I didn't catch this," and one kept going, but four of them stopped when she spun around, stepped back a few feet, and just stood there. She said she was getting communication with them. She said they wanted us to leave, and I said, "Are they threatening us?" And she said, "No, they're concerned for our safety." So we get in the car. We drove up then to the slopes of Little Round Top. It would have
Hmm.
been where the 15th Alabama first hit the 20th Maine.
Right.
We got out of
Right.
the car. We stand there. We saw a dark figure kind of pacing back and forth. And I've heard others say they call him the sentry. They believe he is a 20th Maine soldier. I'm kind of
Right.
skeptical of some of these stories, but this is what we've been hearing. But then I started seeing very light figures, more and more and more of them. And they started approaching us, and they were like the figures back at the monument. Now we were here, it was almost a misty, warm, like September evening, but these figures kept getting closer and closer. And they were, I could tell as a historian, they were wearing many of them shell jackets, slouch hats. None
Hmm.
had weapons, but some of them had blanket rolls. But they kept more and more. There might have been 2 dozen of these figures. They kept getting closer and surrounding us. It got very cold. Kat told me later I was shivering, but I was just amazed. And one of them, Kat said she was getting communication that he was connected with me. And I could see which one she was talking about. He was short. She said he was very ragtag. And she gave the name Sam. I don't know of any ancestors by that name, but then there may be branches I have not researched too.
Right. Right.
But eventually, Kat got very uncomfortable and wanted to leave. I didn't want to leave. I was just blown away by this. I didn't have a camera or anything with me. We weren't there to investigate. This just, and we left. And to this day, that is just one of the most amazing things I've ever experienced in my entire life. And
It's
I can't
amazing.
explain it.
It's
It
funny
just, it
because
is.
some people, it's like, well, no, no, you've misinterpreted. No, no. There are certain things that you don't misinterpret. Now, when you see objectively through your eyes, now feelings, okay, as someone who is as someone who is a medium himself, you know, it can be subjective. It can be subjective. You have to really kind of, you know, put faith in it. But when you look objectively through your eyes and you see something, what could it be? Could it be your brain hallucinating? Could be, but then you have other people that see the same thing.
One of the
How,
soldiers was like 2 feet from me, and he was extremely tall, well over 6 feet. And I didn't even see this one come up. And I turned and I was
wow.
kind of startled. And Kat said, "Well, that's a tall Gomer, isn't it?" So I know it wasn't my imagination. She's saying,
But that, I mean, it's just amazing. It's amazing when you have more than one person experiencing it, seeing it, and there are so many. Again, there's so many different things atmospherically, naturally. Your eyes, the way they focus, all this stuff can play into something that might not be phenomena. But when you have several people that have experienced the exact same thing, especially sight, they're just I can't. I personally, when I'm able to see objectively anything like that, you just sit there and you just go, I can't prove it. I can't even figure out how
Yeah.
this could happen. This could happen. Well,
Mhm.
I got to ask you, Don, when we start talking about like different parts of the field, do you feel that these soldiers and a lot of and here's this is my one of my biggest complaint about mediums and that sort of thing, they automatically assume that these spirits are stuck earthbound, which can happen in high emotional states, and of course, I mean, in a battle situation, yes, but not constantly. Do you feel the majority of what we experience are earthbound stuck, or do you think that they're there because this was probably one of the most important parts of their lives?
I believe that they are free to come and go, is my take. I can't prove this. It's my gut feeling, my reaction from what I have researched, what I have experienced. I think, at least in most cases, that they are free and that they've made a
Hmm.
choice. The consciousness, whatever part of us survives that you can even see, there's free will there.
Exactly. I agree 100%. And on top of it, because we are rapid. Don, you are one of my favorite guests, and you're coming back on because we have to talk more about this. Uh, I know that, when they had those reunions, they had all those reunions after the war, the blue and gray reunions. And those veterans walked those fields again, and they had that emotion. I know that from reading the National Tribune, which was the Grand Army of the Republic, the Union veterans newspaper,
I've read a
that
lot of the
oh
Tribune,
yeah,
yes.
oh my God, yeah, that's like my Bible when I start reading. But when you go and you
Yeah.
read this, it was they all seem to say the same thing. There's really not a lot of hatred. In the beginning, there was, there's a little something that there, little something things that fist fights and that sort of thing that happened. But overall, this was probably one of the most important things that they ever experienced in their lives. And it was such a
Mhm.
point of pride, personal pride, that they were part of this. I often wonder if they come back and you get the right person at the right place at the right time, such as you and Kat. You guys were there, there's no doubt about it. Right person, right place, right time. I often wonder if their essence, if their personalities can feel that vibration, our vibrations, and how accepted they are with us, and how we feel that we're just this wonderment of what they've done. And I think, did you feel that they may be a lot more, well, they want to make that contact with us because we are in awe of them?
Yes, I think there's a lot to that. Another thing that happened to me at Little Round Top is my wife and I went there, and again, we had the place alone because it was a light rain.
Hmm.
Um, and Diane just stayed in the car and read, but I just kind of my spiritual journey. If I'm in Gettysburg, I have to spend time at Little Round Top, and I went
Yes.
to go up.
Yes.
Well, what they're now changing it all, of course, but the steps to go up to the 20th Main Monument, and I
Right.
felt no, don't go that way. I felt led to walk around, around to the south side, and then come up from behind, pretty much like these flanking members of the 15th Alabama would have done.
Right.
Now, I had an experience with another medium who told me my ancestor was here standing at the crest and pointed downward from the 20th main position. I thought, well, she's misguided because my ancestors would have been attacking. But I felt led,
Right.
and I ended up, once I got my bearings, just kind of following, I felt guided I ended up at the crest at pretty much the same spot that this medium had told me. That's where my ancestor was. And in my mind's eye, I could see just dense smoke and
Mm-hmm.
maybe an arm, a leg, and just total confusion. And I didn't want to leave. I just stood and took this in. Like, I'm supposed to be here. There's a reason that this is happening. Well, then I was in the midst of reading a book on the 15th Alabama on Little Round Top, and did some more research, and I found out that, yeah, these flanking companies, by accounts by both North and South, actually those flanking companies for a brief period took the crest and forced the 20th Maine down the front side of the crest of Little Round Top. My
Exactly.
ancestors have been right where, only I did not know that part of the story till later. And it just, there again, it's one of those kind of almost spiritual moments, like, wow, okay, I get this.
Well,
Wow.
they did.
Uh,
When
I, w-
when you think about where they ended up, and then you had that break where you had the Berdan sharpshooters with the green uniforms and the Sharps repeating rifles, and you had that one company that was broken away from uh, from the 20th Maine. Yeah, 15th made it up to that crest, and then they
Mhm.
rose up and they did the infilating fire, and that was pushed down, and they thought there was more reinforcements coming. But you're right. That was correct. 100% correct. That right where you described, he would have stood. That would have been right there. I've stood on that spot many, many times. I've often been led to that spot just to stand there right at that crest and know that you get pushed back down. You could feel that. It's almost as if the psychic energy, when you stand there, comes up from one side and pushes you back down into that little
Yes.
gully. Amazing. That's amazing.
There's like an imprint of the energy, but like I say, and I've had other instances where in my mind's eye, I guess I'm a sensitive. I've been told
Right.
that many times. I've been told I'm an empath, but that, and we're probably running short of time, but at some point I'll have to tell you about my East Cemetery Hill
Well,
experience too,
you're
which
gonna
I
come back. You're definitely coming back. There's Don, I'm sorry. You're now you're now one of the legends on Black Cat Lounge now, because you've got to come back, and we've got to talk more about this, because that I could talk for hours and hours and hours. Now, before listen, I have to do my job now, Don. I have to do my job. Don, tell everybody
sure.
how they can get a hold of you, how they can find out more about your books, your experiences, and where they can purchase your books, most importantly, because that, we have to, my whole goal has always been to go and showcase great people. And I got to tell you what, Don, I am so honored that you came on tonight. And I want everybody to go out and I want everybody to purchase your books, because they are great. And not just a ghost book, you know, your other works are just as good. Tell everybody how they can do that.
Well, the best way, you can go to our website, fatedbanner.com, for all the books. I have I still do I'm retired as an editor, but I still do my daily newspaper column. Doubles as my blog. You can read my weekly blog there at the website. Check out all the books. We have some odds and end things. We do like greeting cards with Civil War artwork. Thomas Naft's
Wow.
Christmas artwork is a favorite of mine. You can order those there. The paranormal books, imetaghost.com is the website. You can get the paranormal books at the other and go back and forth, but and if you're interested in some of my stories, when my I Met a Ghost at Gettysburg book came out, I did a PBS interview with one of our local stations, and that got picked up. And every Halloween, unfortunately, that's how these things go. But every
Yes.
Halloween, that gets aired on PBS stations all over the country. I have people from Massachusetts, Kansas, whatever, say, "Hey, I saw you on PBS." And But yeah, you can order the books there. Of course, Amazon, but I'd rather you get it from our website. You can request
Great.
signed or personalized copies there.
Agreed.
And yeah, I do the column I write is on my mind, and the blog, and I do best of books, the best of on my mind, a couple of volumes of those. Hell on Belle Isle's first book I ever wrote back in the 90s, still the best-selling book I've ever done, still in print. I still do talks and talk to historical groups on that one. Very sad story, very gripping story of a Union POW is held on
Hmm.
Belle Isle. But yeah, just go to one of those websites, or if you like to buy your stuff at Amazon or bookstores, that's okay too. But
As you know what, Don, as an author myself, I always feel that you're supporting the author by buying direct from the author. You're appreciating the amount of work that they've done to get this book published. And I'm one of those people, Don, that I cherish autographed books. I feel
me,
like I get that connection with a fellow author who has taken the time to write this, and I get a chance to meet them and shake their hands, and I get their autograph in that book. It's inscribed, and it means so much to me. uh, I don't know how many books I've given away or lost over the years, but I can tell you one thing, Don. I have never lost or given away an autographed book in my life. That's the honest to God
me
truth.
either. I'm with
But
you there. Authors are my favorite people in the whole world, and
uh,
writers. And yeah,
exactly. I agree. I
if I
agree.
did nothing but read books the rest of my life, all my waking hours, I don't think I could read all the books I have in my personal library, and I'm still buying books. You have to.
It's it's an addiction. I'm much the same way. Don, please stay on the line. I want to thank you properly after the show. And I have to tell you, this was the quickest hour that I've spent with anybody in a very, very long time. This was illuminating. It was just fun. And I love to talk Gettysburg and ghosts. And when I have somebody of your caliber that comes on, it makes it special for me. So just hold on a few minutes, my friend.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim.
We'll see just a couple more seconds. Guys, I have to go. And was he not fantastic? He was just probably one of the most fun guests I've had in so long. Uh, I just want to let everybody know, just imparting, guys. You know, just when you think it's safe to go outside, sometimes the sky just kind of falls in on you. Bottom line is, some people are just not happy when everybody else is happy. Sometimes they're not happy until they can make other people uncomfortable or second guess themselves. Here's the bottom line, guys. Never worry about anything like that. Being happy is up to us. Being content is up to us. Yeah, there's circumstances that can push you around, but we have that choice. We've got that choice to be happy. We've got that choice to go on. We got that choice to do what we want to do. So, guys, just imparting. Be happy. Be happy, be content, and follow your dreams like we all do. Follow your dreams. Guys, you've been listening to Tim Shaw, of course, and we're at the Black Cat Lounge, where the elite meet next to the dumpster stand for the transfer station. Guys, ciao, babies. We'll see you next week. Thank you so, so much for being a part of my show and my life. Bye, guys.